evening. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. I'm Courtney Wenzel, and I am your new class of 21 counselor. So it's nice to see all of you, and thank you for coming this evening. I will let you also know there are plenty of packets in the back, so if you do want an extra one, you're welcome to grab them. So there's plenty of materials, so don't hesitate to do that as well. I have a lot of information to share with you this evening, so hold on tight because it's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you. I will also be around afterwards for some questions, so if you have anything and you prefer to wait till the end to talk to me privately, that's fine too. I'll be around for a little bit. So, all right, so we'll get started. So as I said, my name is Courtney Wenzel. I am your counselor for the class of 2021. This is my 10th year in school counseling, my 7th year in high school counseling, and my 5th year at Nordonia. So I am proud to be here. It's gone really quickly. I actually just graduated the last class of 2019, and so then it was a nice transition for me to jump right into juniors. My mind has kind of been in this world for the last 2 years, so I'm excited to do this for the next 2 years. So here's a little bit about what we're going to cover this evening. I tried to make it very focused and streamlined so that everyone could get what they needed based on what your individual needs are, and I hope that you're able to get some valuable information tonight. So I will cover the graduation requirements briefly here at the beginning, since there are some revisions to that for the class of 21. We'll also talk about the 3 E's, which are enrollment, employment, and enlistment. Planning targets for each one of those, so some guidance and suggestions on planning, depending on what pathway you decide to take. And then college admissions, the nitty-gritty, and some resources for you. So I really will dig into the college admissions piece a little bit more towards the end of it, and if you know for sure that that's not a pathway for you, I won't be offended if you leave, so that is okay, but I did want to get into that a little more deeper, so I kind of kept it towards the end. So I really thank all of you for coming and being intentional with this process. It is very important. There's a lot going on. How many of you are here because you have a child and it's your first one that might be going to college? So it can be a confusing process, and know that it is constantly changing, but I am here as a resource for you, so please do take advantage of me. So we're going to hit on these graduation requirements real quick. There's a couple different components to it, and in your packet of information tonight, there is a handout specific to these from the state of Ohio. So you're welcome to kind of follow along. The first piece I'm going to cover is what courses are required for graduation, and then the rest of it is kind of that testing requirement piece that gets really confusing, and that there's been a ton of changes in the last few years about, so I will explain that. So here are your course requirements for graduation. All students who graduate from Nordonia are required to complete 21 credit hours in the following courses. So that's 4 English, 4 math, including Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and an advanced math. 3 credits of science, which includes a life science, a physical science, and an advanced, which is typically biology, physical science, or physics, and then chemistry or environmental. 3 credits of social studies, including world, U.S. history, and then Gov Econ. 1 credit of fine arts, a half of a credit of PE. This is completed in a couple different ways. It can be through completing the 2 courses, PE 9 and PE 10, each are a quarter credit, or doing it online through our digital nights, which is a half credit PE, or through the PE waiver. There is no combining of the options though, so if you choose to do the PE waiver, you must complete 2 seasons of an athletic or marching band. And once those 2 seasons are completed, then you can fill out the PE waiver and submit that, and it will show up on your transcript so that you can double check that you've completed that. But you can't mix a season of athletics with a PE class. And it has to be PE 9 and 10. It can't be lifetime fitness or team sports or anything like that. So I like to clarify that because there does seem to be confusion around that sometimes. Additionally, you need a half credit of health, 5 elective credits, 5 and a half if you use the PE waiver in order to get to that 21 credit hours. And then 20 hours of community service, and that's approximately 5 hours per year that you're enrolled at Nordonia. And so the next piece here is about those requirements from the state regarding testing or competency. So you will see in your packet that there's a handout that really kind of lays out these options for you, and I kind of split it in half, so this is one part of it. So there are 3 pathways to meet what I will refer to as the testing requirement for graduation, and that is through our end-of-course exams, an industry-recognized credential or workforce readiness test, or college and career readiness test. So the end-of-course exams are laid out as the following. There's 7 of them: English 1 and 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology, U.S. History, and Government. And we also refer to these as air tests, so you may recognize that name. Most of the juniors have completed 6 of the 7, and majority of them will finish that up this year with their government test, whether it's this semester or next semester. So that's the first component of this requirement, is to take all 7 exams. Within that, you also need to score certain points on each exam. So out of all 7s, each individual test is worth anywhere from 1 to 5 points. 3 is what we consider a proficient score, or 3 or higher. And you must earn minimum points in 3 different areas. So between your 2 English classes, or your English courses, you need to obtain at least 4 points. Between your 2 math tests, you need to obtain at least 4 points. And between your science and social studies combined, you need at least 6 points. However, there's also an additional requirement of 18 points overall. So if you were to meet your minimums, 4, 4, and 6, that puts you at 15 points overall. So you need to pick up 3 extra points somewhere in order to get to your 18 total points. So if you can meet all 4 of those criteria, then you can check this requirement off for graduation. So this is what we primarily try to reach first. We test in all 7 areas. We do retakes as needed, and we kind of revisit this constantly because it does, every year you are taking different tests. There are some outlying circumstances too, so if you are an outlier, if you transfer it in from out of state, or if you're fulfilling it through a CCP or AP option, there's those kind of situations too, and I can address those individually. Another option for meeting the testing requirement would be through an industry credential and workforce readiness. These are our CVCC students, so this would be a pathway that they could use. So this is earning a minimum of 12 points through the State Board of Education approved industry recognized credential. That's a lot of words. Really what that means is passing their credential test at CVCC. They receive points on those tests, and they just need to get to that 12-point minimum. For that, also earn the required score on a worked keys, which is a workforce readiness test. That would be an option other than the industry recognized credential. Most students do not take the work keys unless they aren't meeting their credential tests. And then there's also an option, and within that work keys, the state does pay for students to take that assessment. The third pathway for the testing requirement that students can utilize is through a college and career readiness test. These are your ACT and SATs. So a few years ago, the state included this as an option for graduation, and so that's why they also started to fund all juniors to take the ACT or SAT one time during their junior year. So now we administer the ACT one time to all juniors, and I will talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But these are your remediation-free scores for the class that just graduated, and they update those by spring of your junior year every year. They haven't changed recently, so this is what you can kind of anticipate. So if you haven't met the testing requirement through your end-of-course exams, those air tests, or through a CVCC pathway, you can also use an ACT or SAT score. So that would be the option for the third pathway. Recently, the state has revamped and added some additional options because I think they're starting to realize that testing is not the only way to determine competency and readiness for the workforce or college. So that's where this information is brand new and you may have not seen before. So on that handout, you'll see on the back side of it, it talks about showing competency. So if you're not meeting the testing requirement, then the state has allowed some what I kind of refer to as alternate pathways. In order to have access to these alternate pathways, you need to obtain what they call a competency score in Algebra 1 and English 2. That would be a 3 or higher. Or test at least one additional time in those two areas if you don't have a competency score. So if you test once and you don't receive a competency score in English and or Algebra 1, you have to retake it at least one time. Once you've done that second retake, then you have the option for these additional pathways. So there's 3 options here that are listed for you. The first one is demonstrate 2 career-focused activities. The second one is enlist in the military, and the third one is earn a credit through the college Credit Plus program in math or English. So that would be like a 3-credit college course. We do offer actually college composition here at the high school senior year. That would count for this. So majority of students will most likely choose option 1. And we are working on actually outlining some activities and pathways to connect students to this option if you need it. Then also the CCP option would be another area that we have some options to. Enlistment, though is not the most common pathway in high school, we do have several students that take that pathway, and so that would count as well to get you through the first piece of this requirement. So in order to show competency, you pick one of these 3 options, and then you must also show readiness through obtaining what the state has identified as seals. So if you'll see below that where it says show readiness through these different seals, some of these we already know what they look like, and we're ready to help students obtain those. They're not too difficult actually, which is the great thing. And then there's a couple that have local next to them. Those are up to us to create, and we're in the process of working with our Board of Education to create those currently. So just kind of for those of you that are maybe borderlining on meeting those 18 points or waiting to see what your ACT score and SAT score is, know that we do have options available to you if you don't meet that testing requirement in order to give you a pathway to graduation. Okay, so those are your graduation requirements. The next piece here, I'm not going to go too into detail about, but this is also in your packet. It's the honors diploma options for the class of 2021. These are revised options, so the previous class that just graduated had the option of using the previously established honors diplomas, and then also these new ones. Class of 2021 is one of the first class that only has access to the revised honors diploma, so I wanted to make sure that you knew what those are and what they look like. So if you have your reading glasses, you might need them. It's really tiny print. You can also access it online where you could blow it up a little bit. But anything on there you'll see is not too different other than as far as the basic honors diplomas, but they did add 3 additional honors diplomas that now students have access to. So they have the access to the STEM honors diploma, there's a civic engagement one, and there's an arts one as well. Within those, there is a field experience component now, and students in the past couple of years that have worked on, who have met these, have done their field experience through our senior internship or job shadow program. So it's really easy to combine that with that. If that's something that's a little concerning to you, like how am I going to fit that in on everything else, just know that that has been met through our senior internship job shadow program really easily. So I'm going to move now on to more of the kind of what happens after high school and what your transitional options are. And as I mentioned before, we look at those as kind of 3 different pathways. That's enrolled, employed, and enlisted. And I'll hit on each one of those individually. So really what I kind of want everyone to realize is that you really do have to develop your own individualized plan. So each of you are individuals, you're unique, you have your own strengths and your own weaknesses and your own goals and your passions and things of that nature. So this is going to look different for all of you. I'm giving you information so you can start building your own plan. So that's what this process is really about. That involves career and self-exploration. It involves a lot of planning and organizing, and it also involves taking action. And right now, we are really in that kind of the end of the career and self-exploration, in that planning mode and the organizing. That's why you're here tonight, kind of gathering information. And then as you transition through the end of junior year into senior year, that's when that action piece really takes hold, and there's a lot going on. So a little bit about career exploration, just some things that I want you to have access to if you're still trying to figure things out and not quite sure what you want to do, or you really want to ensure that you're in the right direction. Career exploration is a daily process, and it really has started from when you were really little all the way up through now, and it will continue throughout your life. The way that the job force is now is that a lot of people change careers throughout their adulthood, and that's kind of normal. Whereas before it was really you kind of stuck in one pathway and you rode that out through retirement. So there's a lot of change going on within our culture work-wise, and really understanding that you've been working on your career development since you were really little, and maybe you dressed up as or played teacher, or thought you were a doctor and played those kind of make-believe things when you were younger. So that's all part of this process. So when we talk about career exploration, or just kind of exploration in general, these are the different categories and things that you're considering when you're going through that process. So we're looking at abilities and skills, goals, relationships, values, interests, and personalities. A lot of you have taken some type of career assessment through Naviance. We do that in the 9th and 10th grade year. And when you take those assessments, these are the things that it's evaluating and trying to pull information out of you about, so that it can connect you to some potential options for career interests and things like that. So when you're thinking about the kind of lifelong goal of what do you want to be when you grow up, these are the different things that you should be talking about and thinking about as far as what makes you a good fit for a particular career. So what do you do if you don't know what you want to do? That comes up quite a bit, and it's okay to not know exactly what you want to do right now. So here are some tools for you to get you connected to some resources and to start kind of honing in on some options for you. Naviance is a great tool, and I almost wish we had a class just on that, because you could utilize it for so much more than we really have the time or capacity to do within the limited time we have with you as counselors. But these are a few things that I did want to highlight. Some of them you have done, and so going back and going through your results is an option, and you can even redo some of them if you feel like it's not an accurate representation of you today. So as far as assessments go, you have a learning styles inventory that's in Naviance. You did a 9th grade year. This will help you kind of understand what type of learner you are, auditory, those kind of things, sensory, tactile, all those different types. It'll also give you study strategies. So that's one thing that I think really appears junior year is maybe a lack of study skills if you haven't really had to do that before and you start to get in some of your more advanced classes. So this can help with that too. But it also just helps with kind of understanding yourself as a learner and maybe what type of learning environment you need to seek out at the post-secondary environment. There's a career interest profiler that you completed, and then there's also a career cluster finder, a strengths explorer, and an MI advantage. So all of these are what we call career or self-exploration assessments, and all of them can give you some really good data to work with when it comes to what to do after high school and what would be a good fit for you. But know that it just kind of gives you results, but then you have to dig into those and you have to research more into those, so it is a process. Some other tools that are available to you is Road Trip Nation. These are hundreds and hundreds of videos of people working in different careers, and so they give you a little more insight into what those careers look like. So if that's more your style when you're researching, Road Trip Nation's available in Naviance. Supermatch College Search is a great tool for college searching, and I will be touching on that when I'm in classrooms this year. Career cluster information is in there, so once you get your results from your assessments, there is a lot of career cluster information in there where you can dive into the different career clusters and find out more specific careers within those, what education is required, salary, kind of outlook for those careers, etc. There's also programs of study. These are literally breakdowns of course maps for you, so if you're looking at a particular career or major. It'll tell you what classes you need to take in high school and then at the post-secondary level to give you an idea of what type of courses you're getting into and kind of prepare for that too. So those are all available in Naviance for you. We also have a career specialist at the high school, and a lot of times people are confused of whether she's available to everyone or not. She is someone that is provided to us by CVCC as far as like the funding for her to be in our building. But she is open to all students, actually K through 12 within our district. And so even if you're not a CVCC student, she is a great resource. These are some of the different things that she does, so she can really help with career assessments and kind of digging into that. She can help with lining up job shadows. She can help with employability skills as well. So if you're looking for a job and you need to do some mock interviewing, if you need help building a resume. So a lot of those different employability skills and kind of preparing you for that work world. She also is our liaison for the CVCC program, so if you are considering a CVCC program, even after high school, because they do have adult programs, or have questions about some of those certifications, she's a good resource for that as well. And just as a side note, if you want connected to her, she does have an office in our guidance office. She's there 3 days a week, but you can also just let me know and I will have her send a pass for the student that would be interested in meeting with her, or even parents too. So another great opportunity as far as exploration goes that I ran into recently is the Exploring program. This is a really amazing program that you've probably heard of. We have some students that have participated in it with our local like police force as well as our fire department, known as the Explorer program. But it really, there's a lot more options out there for all different career types. So I have a little video I just wanted to show you on that real quick.
Tapping into my potential.
I'm discovering who I am.
I'm seizing the day.
And making the most out of the opportunities in front of me.
I'm unleashing my best work.
I'm igniting my passions.
Finding out how to do what I love to do
In ways I've never known before. And learning from those who've been here before. And got there before.
I'm exploring my future.
I am an explorer.
I am an explorer.
I'm an explorer.
When I'm exploring, here's what I'm not.
I'm not a student.
I'm not at work.
I'm not an intern.
Nope. I'm not a pencil pusher.
Not a procrastinator.
I'm not cramming for an exam.
And I'm definitely not in detention.
When I'm exploring,
I'm home.
I'm with friends.
I'm in my happy place. I'm in the zone.
Sure, I study hard and take my education seriously.
But I feel like exploring prepares me for my future in a different way.
I mean, where else can I get this kind of experience to learn about the things that I'm passionate about?
Where can I find great mentors?
Who work in the career fields I'm interested in.
where can I be me?
I learn by doing.
I belong by exploring.
Exploring. Discover your future.
So a little bit about this program. There's a local program. It's under the umbrella of Boy Scouts of America, but you don't have to be involved with Boy Scouts of America to participate. It's been around for a long time. It's just primarily known for like police and fire, but they have programs in architecture, engineering, medical fields, IT, like pretty much anything you can think of. And they're typically 6 week programs that you can get involved in, and you can go and use as many of the programs as you want, so you could try out different careers, but you're actually in the workforce. Like you're side by side working and learning those skills, and I think it's a good opportunity to kind of get a feel for, is that really something you want to do for the rest of your life? It's a lot different than sitting in a class and learning through lecture. This is hands-on experience. So if you're interested in this program, I have some brochures in my office. There's also the website here. It is on your online resources handout in your packet too. So something to consider if that's something you're interested in. Some other things to think about as you're kind of going through this process between now and your senior year. This is also a really good opportunity to participate in summer programs. The reason that I recommend these is for a couple reasons. One, it's good for that self-exploration piece. It's also really good opportunity to get you some additional skills, and these look great on resumes for college and other things that you might be interested in long term. So these are just some examples, but there's scholar and academic programs throughout the summer at a lot of our prestigious campuses. So Duke has their own program where you could go and participate in courses there. They also, Kent State University has summer experience programs, a really cool foreign language one, as well as a science program that they do over the summer. They have them at a lot of different universities. Miami University has a really cool diversity one too. So just some things to think about as you're kind of planning for the next year or so. Some of these universities, if you participate in their summer programs and you end up enrolling in their school in the following year, there's scholarship money that's attached to that. So always good to look out for those scholarship opportunities. There's internships available too over the summer. Some are paid, some are not. As someone who did a medical internship in high school and really got to see the ins and outs of surgery and things like that, I highly recommend these types of experiences. They're really cool, and also just, again, look really good on college applications. So Cleveland Clinic has some, Summa Health Systems, Swagelok has some as well, and there's also a lot of local community partners that are willing to host students for these types of things. And then there's leadership camps as well. So a few that I kind of researched and looked into. There's Girls Who Code summer immersion programs. There's one through the University of Notre Dame through a summer leadership program. There's one for females, high achieving females, through the Joyce Ivy Summer Scholars Program, where you get access to universities in schools such as Harvard and Brown and Stanford and things like that. In the Peace Corps as well, so for more after high school type of things. So just some suggestions as things to be thinking about throughout this year and your summer that will be coming up. And then here's some additional exploration resources. So if you still feel like you need some more and you're trying to figure out how to get connected to things or more assessments or whatever it is you're looking for, there you go. Here are some resources for you, and these are on your online handout as well. One thing that a lot of people overlook is the ASVAB. The ASVAB can also be used for students that aren't interested in enlisting in the military. It does provide a lot of really good information and data about an individual, and this website helps you utilize it in more of a career exploration piece and not so much military battery assessment. So something to think about. Okay, so moving on to enrolled. So enrollment is really enrollment into any type of post-secondary institution post-graduation from high school. So that can look like a 4-year college or university, a 2-year community or junior college, or a career tech educational program or vocational program. So all of these are considered post-secondary options or education. So when we say, are you going to college? Is that something that you're doing? If you fall into any of these categories, then your answer is yes. So these are all awesome opportunities for students depending on your individualized plan. So that's the important thing to remember. So here's some of the kind of pros and cons or differences between these 3 types of options. A 4-year college and university. It does provide a more flexible curriculum because there's access to so many different majors and opportunity within those. A degree flexibility, again, you're going to have access to a lot more degrees as far as number of them, but also level too. So at a 4-year institution, oftentimes you're working towards a bachelor's degree. Sometimes you can also minor in certain areas. You may even be able to obtain an associate's degree in addition to your bachelor's. The options for additional programs and activities are pretty well versed too, so that means your extracurriculars and things like that you can get connected to on campus. There's a large student life on colleges and universities at these 4-year institutions. And it can also be a stepping stone to some of your professional degrees like a pre-med, law, graduate degrees, things like that. So it's kind of your stepping stone to more of those advanced degrees. and some career flexibility. A lot of career opportunities out there do now require that you have at least a bachelor's. Some require that you have at least a master's. It's kind of the direction that things have gone. But that's not the case for all careers, but it does open up your options once you obtain that 4-year degree. 2-year colleges and junior colleges, these typically house associate's degrees, although the state of Ohio has recently changed their laws when it comes to post-secondary institutions, and they are allowing some of these 2-year post-secondary institutions to offer bachelor's degrees if they're approved through the state. So that is something that you might see coming. This is awesome because the tuition at these institutions is so much cheaper than those at a traditional 4-year school. So keep your eyes out for that. There are a couple of local 2-year colleges or junior colleges that are in the process of approving bachelor's degrees. I think there might be a couple that actually have approved some. So it'd be very specific depending on what you're interested in, but something to also keep an eye out on. There is flexibility with these as far as attending part-time or full-time. So if you're planning on working and maybe commuting and all of those things, so it's a little more flexible at a 2-year institution to be able to do those types of activities outside of school. They are more specialized, so a lot of these are certification programs. A lot of them are maybe tech programs of some sort, like a radiology tech or something of that nature. So they are very specific and don't allow for a lot of options once you graduate with that degree. But if you know that you want to go into a specific field or specific specialty, you can knock that out pretty quickly, sometimes in under 2 years. Transfer options. A lot of students will start and do 2 years at a community college and transfer to a 4-year college. The benefit of that is that the tuition is sometimes a third of the cost of that at a 4-year college. So it is a really good option for those of you that are really conscious about that money that you want to put into education. And the credits that you're obtaining are accredited credits, so they will transfer to 4-year institutions, and they will accept those. Usually it's up to a limit, so they'll allow you to transfer in so many credit hours outside of their degree. So something to consider as well. And like I mentioned, it's very cost effective. So career tech and educational vocational options. These sometimes are offered at your 2-year institutions, but there's also other ways to obtain these. So like CVCC would be a good option for that as well. They have a lot of adult programs that fit within this career tech, educational or vocational. You also see some standalone programs or schools that offer the career tech type of degrees or certifications. Tri-C is a good option as well if you're looking for certain things. They have a lot of these career tech type of specialties as well. These are mostly for specialized trades. They take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to complete. They're very specific, like I mentioned before, but they're typically more hands-on, less lecture, so less of that classroom lecture type of environment, which can be a really good fit for some people. So I just have a brief video here. I'm going to show you just about the overview of college options and kind of that process. Khan Academy, if you aren't familiar with that, is a really awesome resource. So I pulled a few different videos from there to share with you, and this is one of them. So I would look into Khan Academy more so than just academics. There's a lot of academic stuff on there, but there's also a lot of resources for college and career exploration too. So here's a quick overview of exploring college options.
I think it can be so overwhelming, just the sheer number of schools. When you open up a guidebook, and the guidebook is more than 1,000 pages long, you just wonder, where do you even start? But I think students who keep an open mind can do really well in the process, because there's so many wonderful institutions out there, and probably schools that you might never have even heard of. So if you're willing to go outside of your comfort zone, if you're willing to go to a school that you maybe haven't heard of, or in a part of the country that you're not really familiar with, you can really open up many, many doors for yourself.
I think the process starts, let's start with academics. And so a student thinking a little bit about what they've done in the last 3 or 4 years with their academics, the classes they've taken, which classes they've really liked. Is it because of the teacher? Is it because of the subject? Is it because of the way it was taught? And really starting to think about, what they may want to study in college. And to think about, the way that material is delivered. Was it in lecture format? Did they do more group work? Did they do discussion-based conversations? And really thinking about what are the ways that they learn best, right? Ultimately for me, when I'm talking to students, especially low-income students that are looking at this process with sort of, not a lot of help in the process, really thinking about how to put yourself in a position to be really successful in college. So thinking through those sorts of things, thinking through a little bit about community. Right? So what kind of community are you going to be in? Who's in that community? Where are they from? Are they all from the local area? Are they from a national pool and an international pool? If you're an underrepresented student, an international student, those sorts of things. Is there a population on that campus? If that's important to you, you can look at those sorts of factors. Extracurricular activities. The things that you're doing now in high school are the things you want to continue to do. So maybe you're a flute player and you want to continue to play in college, although you think you may want to be a biology major. Or is there a school where you can still be in the band and the symphony, but be a biology major?
Ask questions. Anything that comes to your mind, ask the question. There's no question that somebody else hasn't thought about or that you should feel, oh, that's a stupid question, I won't ask them that.
Sometimes I think students become stuck on one school when in fact there is no one perfect school out there for them. And in fact there are many, many, many schools that will be a good fit. And so it's more about figuring out what's the personality of a school and how does it mesh with your personality and what it is that you hope to achieve. Keeping that open mind so that you will have many options and you'll ultimately end up at a place where you'll be really excited to be and where you will be able to have incredible experiences that will really broaden your perspective.
So a couple other options for you if you're interested in watching more of those is they have videos on the difference between selective and non-selective colleges. They have videos on universities versus liberal arts. They have videos as far as like public and private schools. So if you're kind of hearing all these different terms and you're not sure what they mean or what it means for you, this is Khan Academy has some really good videos like this that can kind of explain some of those things, those terms to you, just to kind of help you through that process. So, thank you very much. So this was kind of explaining a little bit of what I was talking about. When you're looking at Khan Academy and it shows you all of the different courses they offer, a lot of those are academic, but there are some under the college admissions and career exploration. That's where you can find some of these videos. So speaking of some of those terms that you may not be familiar with, here are some different ones that I kind of want to highlight because I think they're pretty typical as you're going through this process, and it's probably good to understand those a little bit more in depth. So there are private and public institutions, and there's also universities and liberal arts colleges. So private and public, these are your main differences. So private is a privately owned institution. They're typically smaller, but may be a little larger. Class sizes are small, and they typically have more of a discussion style educational instruction. They are well funded, so there are more financial aid options. So a lot of people do tend to steer away from these because of the big price tag, but they do have a lot of alumni funding and an endowment where they can provide additional scholarships that you won't be awarded at some of your public institutions. So if you are at all interested in private schools, it definitely is worth looking into them and to see what that cost comparison might be for you. Public schools are generally state-run. They're larger and have larger class sizes, typically lecture-style classes. They can be more affordable, though, with that initial sticker price. So universities versus liberal arts colleges. 4-year undergrad and graduate programs typically are housed at universities, so you will see undergraduate and graduate students on campus. They do have a lot of undergraduate programs, so they offer a broader curriculum in that nature, meaning that you have access to a lot more majors and a lot more courses, and so you have a little more flexibility with what kind of classes you might want to take outside of your major. They do offer those pre-professional degrees typically, like pre-med, pre-law, things like that, pre-physical therapy. They do tend to be larger lecture-style courses, especially those first 2 years because of the size of the campus. and the amount of students that need those courses. A lot of research money is directed towards universities, so it does give you options. So if you are looking to do maybe some research as an undergraduate, a university might be a good option for you, because they do have those opportunities available due to that money that's coming in for that. And they do, like I said, offer a wide variety of extracurriculars and athletic programs, as most colleges do. So that's not a standalone type of thing. So liberal arts colleges would be another option. These tend to focus only on undergraduate programs, so you're not going to see graduate programs at a lot of these. They are more focused curriculum and less major options, so you won't have the wide variety of majors, but that curriculum will be very, it'll be very specific for those majors. The strengths are that they do teach critical thinking and writing skills, and they prepare you for kind of the real world. So they look at it as not so much just preparing you for that major that you chose, but also giving you skills to kind of be out there and productive outside of that and really function in the career world. So they do focus more kind of on those maybe not so traditional skills as well. They are typically more discussion-based in their smaller classes as far as their instructional style. There are less research opportunities typically at liberal arts colleges because they don't have that money coming in for research, but it doesn't mean that there aren't research opportunities. You would just need, if that's something you're really interested in, you would need to do more investigating on that side. They tend to be smaller size-wise, so their enrollment is smaller, which results in smaller classes. And they also do offer a wide variety of extracurriculars on campus too. That's something you'll find at most four-year colleges is a strong student life. All right. So our next E is employed. And this would be for the student that is looking to enter the career force or the workforce straight out of high school. And this can be done in a few different ways. So first, a little bit about the difference between a job and a career, because there really is a difference between that. So jobs are typically just need-based at the time, maybe a job you have in high school. It can sometimes turn into a job that you have after high school to sustain you through college and things like that. A career is more intentional, and usually it can consist of more than one job, but the process is more goal-focused and oriented towards achieving higher levels or advancement within your career. And sometimes this does involve education. It almost always involves additional training. Sometimes that can be done through the employer or through some different programs like some of your career tech programs and things like that too. But really what we're trying to get you focused on is building that career for sustainability. So try to think less on survival, like day to day, and more on sustainability for long term. So here are some of your employment options. We have Career Center and credential programs. Some of our students will leave high school with credentials in order to enter right into the workforce. So if you're going through any programs at CVCC, this is a great option for you. There's the senior CVCC programs, and then there's other ones too that you can work and also attend at the same time. So it could be a combination. There's also apprenticeship programs. The demand for skilled workers in Ohio, but then nationally, is really, really huge right now. So there's a lot of room for people to get these types of skills and to have great employment opportunities with advancement opportunities as well. I think a lot of people get stuck in, I'm going to be working construction for the rest of my life, and that's not always the case. I know people who have started in construction or gotten into an apprenticeship and worked their way up to management, and sometimes even owning their own business. And so there are opportunities beyond just learning that skill and using that for the rest of your life. There are opportunities to build on that too. So apprenticeship programs are a really great opportunity for someone that's looking to go right into the career force and work hands-on while also getting that training. Employment that leads to post-secondary training. There's a lot of employers that will actually pay for you to go and get additional training in order to make sure that they have qualified staff because they're at such a shortage for people with the skills that they need. So a lot of hospitals are doing this. IT is a big area. Radiology, things like that. So if you can get into a hospital, there's a lot of opportunity there for advancement. A lot of hospitals are actually housing their own programs now where they will send you through their own credentialing program or licensure program in order to keep you in-house. So that's also an option, as well as through the trades and technology. Swagelock is an example of an in-house kind of training program as well. They have partnered with a local post-secondary institution in order to pay for reimbursement really for employees to go through their training program to get more qualified workers. And Swagelock is a great business to work for. So that would be an example of some things out there. So employment done right. So really, I want you to think about this as a process. It really does involve planning. It's not just a, hey, I'm just going to go work after high school. You really should be thinking about it and planning for it and making sure that you have all the information you need in order to survive outside of high school. So just a couple of things to think about is really this is the time to plan when you have access to resources and to people that can help you through this process and help you with that planning, including myself, our career specialist, and all of the professionals that work here at the high school. Utilize resources and connections. If you know people that are working in a field that you're interested in, go and experience it and check it out. That's the best way to figure out if it's going to be a fit for you. Attend career and job fairs. Just like there's college fairs, there's career fairs as well of local businesses, companies that are looking for people that would be willing to come work for them. Do your research and know what employees are looking for. There is a handout in the back. It says employed at the top, and it talks about the qualities that employers are looking for. So just kind of working and honing in on those skills is important. Build your resume. You should be building a resume and keeping track of experience that you're getting now, because it is what eventually will get you employment, whether that's right after high school or longer down the road. Your resume is really a live document that you should continually be updating and reviewing. Develop employability skills. This can be done by just having a high school job, or it can be done by volunteering places and things like that. Be proactive and don't wait till the last minute. And if you need training, make sure that you understand what those options are and if it's going to cost anything, and those kind of questions need to come up now so that you're not waiting till the last minute to figure all of that out. And our third E is enlistment. So this would be into any of our military branches. There are 5 military branches. So there's the Air Force, the Army, the Coast Guard, the Marine Corps, and the Navy. And you'll notice that some of them have different options. So the Air Force also offers the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard. The Army offers the Army as well as the Reserve and the Army National Guard. Coast Guard has a Guard Reserve as well. And the Marine Corps also have a reserve option, as well as the Navy. So what does that mean? So here's a little information about the different types of duty that you can enlist for. There's active duty and part-time duty. Active duty would be for full-time members of the military employed domestically and overseas. So that would be your career, and that would be what you would be doing full-time. There are, as far as the reserve options, there's part-time as well. So that falls under 2, Reserve or National Guard. And these service members have civilian careers, or maybe attending college or some kind of career program, while also attending training on a monthly basis for their branch of the military. And then utilizing this at a training every year too. So there are some options within the military that you can choose from, depending on if it's something you want to do as a full-time career, or if you're looking for it as a supplement to something else that you're interested in doing. There's lots of benefits to entering the military, long-term wise as well as immediate, especially with funding for education. So there are ways to make it work for you if you still want to go to college, and that's something you're also interested in, is enlisting. So those are things to start looking into now if you're even on the fence about that. So here's some hints as to how to get started with that process. The first would obviously be to meet with a recruiter. We have a list of recruiters for all the different branches in the guidance office, so if you're not sure how to get in touch with someone, we have all their contact information and we can get you connected to that. Prepare and take the ASVAB. There is prep that you can do for the ASVAB, so that's something to consider as well. It is what they use as far as placement, is what your job would be within the military. So the better you do on it, the more options you have, so it's something to consider. Talk through your options with your family and the important people in your family. This really is a very serious decision, and so I encourage you to have discussions and be educated just as I would in any other pathway that you might take. And understand and ask questions about the long-term and the short-term commitments for the military, because it is a contract that you sign, and it's a very serious one when you enter into that. So there's some great resources through online, on the online resources page that I provided to start answering some of these questions or get you some additional information if this is a branch or a pathway that you're interested in. Okay, so I'm going to get back to college admissions now. So if this is something you're really interested in, I'm going to start digging into that a little bit more. If I've kind of hit on everything that you need and you feel comfortable, you're welcome to leave as well. So like I said, you won't hurt my feelings. All right, so college admissions, kind of the ins and outs and all the information you need to know to be prepared. Within your packet, I did provide a lot of different things and a variety of different things. It's kind of examples and things that you can use that may be helpful or may not be helpful. But junior year is really important for planning. So these are some important steps that I recommend for junior year. You will also see some timelines that are in your packet that can kind of guide you through this process as well. So the first thing is to do your research this year. This is really a planning and organizing year. The more that you do now, the easier senior year will be. And trust me, there's enough going on in senior year that you don't want to throw in like last minute research if you don't have to. So the goal this year is really to come up with, I suggest, between 4 and 6 schools that you think you might apply to. You don't have to apply to all of those, but kind of having a list and knowing what each of those requires is a good place to kind of hone in on. Go on college visits and attend college fairs. This is really important to do now. It's not something you want to save for the fall when you should be applying to the schools. You want to have already gone on some of those college visits and really have that opportunity to check out the campus and see if it's someplace you see yourself. And also determine what your must-haves are for college. And sometimes that can only be done by getting on a college campus to know what you feel like you need when you're there. Or what you want to have access to, or what you want to be close to. So really getting into that environment is important. Organize information and plan ahead so that you know deadlines. There's a resource that I provided in your packet that is for organizational purposes, that you can kind of keep notes on all of your colleges. You can write down deadlines and kind of organize your thoughts in that manner. So kind of having some kind of strategy for that is helpful. Deadlines is really important because every college has different deadlines. There's no consistency or rhyme or reason to it. So knowing those ahead of time will help you reduce your stress for senior year and prepare for that process. You can also kind of start on that completing necessary prep for ACT and SAT. Like I mentioned, you will take the ACT in February here at the high school. That'll be February 25th is the date that we will offer it here. And it's not necessary to do prep ahead of time, but it also doesn't hurt either. So you do have a resource in the packet for some free ACT, SAT prep. So if you're just looking for something to kind of get started, there's a lot of options on that. And again, it doesn't hurt to start doing that before you take it, but it is helpful to have a baseline too. So some things to think about. I do recommend that you take I'd actually recommend you take both the ACT and SAT. They are slightly different, we'll talk about that. But if you're gonna only take one, you should take it at least twice at the very least. Essay prep. So when you are doing your research and you're looking at application deadlines, you can pull up an application and see what is involved in that application, and you can look at the essay requirement. If there is one, it doesn't hurt to look at what that prompt is so that you can start preparing for that when it's your time to fill that out. Having your essays done ahead of time will save you a lot of stress come senior year, or at least starting that process is helpful. So that's something to think about this year as well. Same thing with recommendation letters and researching scholarship options. Like all of that researching piece can really start to be done now. And if you spread it out over time, then it won't be so time consuming. It's helpful also to start understanding the financial aid options and the deadlines for that for each individual school. Again, they all have different deadlines, so priority deadlines and scholarship deadlines and things like that. If you're considering playing sports at the college level, you do need to be aware what the NCAA requirements are. There is the handout in the packet about that specifically, and it kind of gives you a roadmap to meet eligibility for college play. And then also think through your senior courses. So know that even though you won't be sending grades for senior classes, when you apply to colleges, they will see what classes you are taking your senior year. So that process of planning your senior schedule is still very important in this college admissions process as well. They will look at that, and they will keep tabs on what those grades are throughout the year. So some of your application basics here, just things to expect as you are looking at a variety of different applications. These are the different requirements that pretty much all applications are going to ask for. So there's the application piece, and there's a transcript that has to be sent, a school profile, typically a school report is required, test scores, that's your ACT or SAT, the essay, which is sometimes optional, recommendation letters, a potential for an interview or an audition depending on types of programs that you're applying to, and then the financial aid piece as well. So that's your typical components for a application to majority of all colleges or universities. So I'm going to hit on each one of those components individually. So here's the application. There's a couple different types of applications that you might run into. Some colleges still allow you to apply directly to the institution, to that school. That's done through their website. You can click on apply now or apply here or apply online, depends on the button that you're clicking on. But that would be one way to apply to some schools. Some schools do not allow you to apply directly to the institution. They only utilize what's called the Common App or the Coalition App, and some let you do either or. So it's helpful to be familiar with all of these options. So the direct to the institution would be applying directly through that website. Common App, which is pretty common and a lot of students utilize, is exactly that. It's one application that you fill out, you create an account, you complete the application, you fill out all of your information, and then there are different tabs for each individual school you're applying to where they have their own questions. But once you fill that out, you use that and it goes to all of those schools that you're applying to. So it is time, it saves you some time in the long run. It also, I think, just makes the process a little more streamlined. So that is something that you can even start to become familiar with by visiting the website for Common App and creating an account and kind of getting familiar with that. So a lot of institutions have really moved towards using the Common App, so you can expect to run into that with at least one, if not more, of the schools that you consider applying for. The Coalition App is somewhat similar. There's less schools that utilize this than the Common App. But it is also another one where if more than one school accepts it, then you can fill it out one time and you can use it for any of the schools that you're applying to that accept the Coalition App. So similar in that nature. The Common App is much more widely used as far as colleges and universities go. A lot of your public schools are using Common App, and some more and more of your private schools are as well. So it definitely will benefit you to understand how to use the Common App. And also within that, there's always an additional section on the application that students are confused about. Well, what do I do with that? This is really, from my feedback from colleges, when we meet with them and ask them what do they want from that, this is your opportunity to elaborate on anything they need to know. So if there's a special circumstance they need to be aware of, if you had a really rough year in high school because of some circumstances outside of your control and it impacted your grades, this is where you explain that. If you participated in a really awesome leadership program, where for you to talk about that in your application, this is where you can put that in there. So look at this as a supplemental to what you're already sharing with them. So it is good to utilize it if you have something that you do need to provide for colleges in that nature. And they love to see that information because they really are looking for who you are individually and why things look the way they do when they get all your records. So utilize that additional information piece if you think that it'll benefit you. I'm also going to have a couple Common App hints throughout the through the rest of the presentation, just because there's some secrets to the trade when it comes to that, so keep an eye out for those. So the transcript is the next part of the application. All colleges and universities request a transcript, actually multiple times throughout the year. Typically we send them with your initial application, they do a mid-year check, and then they also do a final transcript request at the end of the year, so they want to make sure you actually graduate. So it goes to your colleges a few times. So what this consists of, this is your academic record. On your transcript, these are the things that colleges are going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at your high school courses, your completed courses, and those that are in progress. Your final grades only are what go on transcripts, so your quarter grades are not on your transcript, just your final grades for the course, okay? Your cumulative GPA is on there. Again, those are only final grades that are calculated into cumulative GPA. So a lot of times I get concerns at the 9 weeks because, oh, I got a C on my 9 week, is that going to go in my transcript? It doesn't. So you still have, the next 3 quarters to get that to where you want it to be until it'll show up on your transcript. Your class rank is also on your transcript. They also look at attendance, and then test scores are reported on our transcripts as well. And as a side note for test scores, some institutions do require that you have those sent directly from ACT or SAT, so even though we have them on there, you need to ensure that that school will accept them on our transcript. Otherwise, you do have to have them sent directly from ACT or SAT. The school profile. This is kind of a snapshot of Nordonia High School and how our students typically perform on different tests, GPA-wise, our grading scale, what extracurriculars we offer, what AP courses we offer, CCP courses, those kind of things. So the school profile is a document that they use to evaluate you as a student as far as what you have access to in high school. So if they're looking at you and comparing you to another high school that has 15 more AP options and 3 more CCP options in-house, and they don't weight grades and vice versa, that's really hard to do when they're trying to figure out who to enroll in their school. So what they do is they want the school profile so that they know, oh, well, you didn't take, I don't know, AP, I'm trying to think of one that we don't have, something that we don't have, because you didn't have access to it. Not because you didn't want to challenge yourself, but because you didn't have access to that course to take in high school. So they want to give you a fair comparison when they're evaluating you as a student, but they are looking to see what you took, what kind of courses you challenged yourself with, and what extracurriculars you had access to and what you took part in. So they use this to help evaluate you as an individual student based on what high school you attended and what you had access to while you were there. So that is a helpful piece for them, and that's why we send that to them as part of your application. A school report. The Common App does require this. Not all schools do, but a large majority of them do. It's the school report or the secondary school report. So a couple things. I did note here a Common App hint is that you do not need to request this. This is something that we automatically fill out for every student that does the Common App. So that will come through a lot as far as questions go or the counselor recommendation. This is all within that school report, and it's something that we automatically do for any student that applies through the Common App. So what does it mean? So it is completed by myself, the school counselor, and I provide background on our school as far as what our grading policies are. They want to know if our honors classes are weighted, if our GPA is a weighted GPA. They want to know if rank is weighted, like all of those different things, so that way when they're looking at the transcript, they know what they're looking at and what that means for the students. I also provide academic ratings for the students through that report, and we confirm rank and cumulative GPA as well. Test scores. So again, we will offer the ACT here at the high school on February 25th. This is the state-funded one. So students, you do not have to pay for this. Parents, you do not have to pay for this particular ACT. We register and the cost is covered for all juniors. All right, so that's every one of you 328 juniors out there. You will be registered for this and you will take this on February 25th. Anytime you want to take the ACT outside of that test though, you must register yourself and you must pay for it yourself. So that it does get confusing because we don't offer, the ACT is not a national testing site. This will be the only opportunity that you have to take it here at the high school, okay? So a couple things about ACT and SAT. Again, all of your attempts are listed on your transcript here at the high school. But some colleges will require that you send that directly to them from ACT or SAT, and you can do that through their website and have that sent to them. You can also do it as when you're registering for the ACT or SAT, you can select which schools you want your scores to go to. A little hint here is that colleges will look at your highest score only when they're evaluating you. So you don't have to be afraid to send them. They will take your highest score. And some of them will super score. What that means is they will look at all of your attempts and they'll look at your highest score in each subject area, and then they'll super score you to give your highest composite score. So that can be really beneficial in order to, if you send them all of your testing, your test scores. So they have assured us year after year from Kent State Twinsburg all the way through Harvard, who I sat through a presentation with last week, that it does not harm you to send all your test scores. They will look at only your highest scores, and those scores that super score, it really does benefit you to share those. I do recommend that you take a writing section at least once. It is optional, you don't have to take it, but if you run into a school that does require it, and maybe it's a school you weren't planning on applying to, and you never took the writing, you have to go back and retake the whole test. So take a writing so that you have the option, and then after that, it's not something you have to do every time. I also recommend that you take the ACT and the SAT score because they are slightly different. So some students do a little better on one than the other, and you absolutely should take it more than once. Research shows that just simply a second attempt tends to raise a student's score by like 2 to 3 points because just exposure to that test gives you a leg up. So take it more than once. Some community and junior colleges do not require ACT or SAT scores. You can submit them and they'll use them for placement into college or into college courses, but they don't always require them. So if you're thinking like Tri-C or somewhere like that, you don't have to take the ACT or SAT. You will once here on February 25th, but you can take placement tests there in order to be enrolled into that institution. So that's a side note as well. Here's a little bit about the differences between the ACT and the SAT. So I think the biggest difference is in really the test structure. As far as time-wise goes, there's a 5-minute difference, so time's not very much of a difference between the two of them. But when you are, excuse me, when you are looking at test structure, you'll see that the SAT has a reading and a writing and language section, and the ACT has an English section and a reading section. The SAT and ACT both have math, and the ACT has a science reasoning, whereas the SAT does not. Also here, if you'll look at the math piece, where it talks about what is covered under the math section, you'll see a slight difference there as well between the SAT and the ACT. So you'll see on the SAT there is some data analysis where that is not covered in on the ACT. So again, they're slightly different. Some students do a little bit better on one than the other, and I would say 99% of schools accept both ACT and SAT. There's also a portion on the SAT that does not allow you to use a calculator, and not so on the ACT. So forgot that one as well. All right, so test prep option and recommendations. So here's a few just things to think about as you're preparing to enter into the world of test prep. It does help to start with a baseline, so if you can take a practice test, one that you sit for, that's great. There are some great online ones as well. Those of you that took the PSAT will receive results on that in December, and you'll be able to use that for SAT baseline. There's also a lot of online free resources, like I said, for practice tests. That's in your packet. So some of your options are Naviance Test Prep. You do have access to a test prep in Naviance. It's the same that you would purchase from ACT Pearson, so don't go out and purchase that. Go into Naviance. utilize that. Test prep, I'm hoping to get into English classes in December to introduce that just briefly to students so you know how to access that. You can purchase programs to complete independently. You can pay for a tutor, and there's also workshops and extended programs that you can also purchase or pay to participate in. I really suggest to get a baseline of some sort to determine what's the best path for you and how much effort you need to put into increasing your score. As far as what's that golden number where the scholarship money starts rolling in, that's typically between like a 27 and a 28. So when you're looking at colleges and their applications and their scholarships, that's one thing to keep an eye on, is what is that ACT or the SAT they're requiring, where those scholarship money starts to be awarded for academics. Recommendations, again, I'd say take both the ACT and SAT, take them more than once, and don't wait till the last minute. You can visit collegeboard.org as well as act.org to find the test dates. There are several in the spring. You'll take the one in February. I definitely recommend trying to take another one. I think there's one in April and typically in June, July. So if you can get another one in before you get back to school, that's helpful, because if you need one more attempt, if you're really close and you need to take another one, there's one in September and one in October. And that October one is typically the last one you can get back in order to meet any December deadlines. So your essay. Essays are optional for some applications and required for all. If you are using the Common App, there's a required essay prompt that you will have to complete. In 12th grade English, they do actually start working on the Common App prompt in English at the beginning of the school year. However, you may not want to wait until then, because some people may be applying, at the start of the senior year. So just something to think about. You can access that prompt just by logging in and creating an account through Common App. What colleges are looking for is not just some, typical essay that you'd submit in an English class. What they use the essay for is to determine who you are as an individual, what you're going to contribute to campus, and really what makes you you. They're looking for self-reflection, they're looking for insight, they're looking for uniqueness as an individual. If you have a circumstance that you've had to overcome and you can use that to kind of show how you approach adversity, that's a great opportunity to do that through your essay. So they're not looking for just like your general academic essay, like, I've been through this in life and I've learned this lesson, avoid cliches. None of that is wanted. So try to use this as, again, a way to supplement your application and to show them a part of you that maybe they can't see through your application. Recommendation letters, also optional for some applications, required for some. Some require more than one. Some require none. Some will max you out, so you can only submit a certain amount, and once you've submitted that, then they lock out receiving any other ones. So it's really, really important to understand what each college needs for this particular component, so that you don't miss out on an opportunity to supply a recommendation letter. But then also, if you have multiple recommendation letters and you send your application but you really wanted a certain one to go, that's something you need to communicate to our office so that the right ones get to where they need to be, because they're really just uploads at this point. Everything's sent electronically these days. And colleges do read these, so pick people that know you and can really talk about your character and who you are as a student and what you contribute to the school environment. Because they're really not looking for a list of your extracurriculars or anything like that. Those are the things that they can see on the application. So kind of prep your recommenders for what you would like them to share or what you would like them to kind of focus on, or give them a little guidance as what the school might be looking for. All right, so that is okay, but also give your recommenders plenty of time. As seniors, they will be getting lots of recommendation requests. So, okay. We are nearing the end, I promise. A couple of application deadline options that you'll run into. So not only are there different deadlines, there's different application options. So there's the early decision, the early action, regular decision, and rolling admissions. So I kind of laid out some options here, or some bullet points here so that you know the difference. If you are dead set on one school and it's your dream school, and if you can get in, you will go there regardless of the price, that's what early decision is for. It is a binding agreement, meaning if you apply early decision, that school expects you to show up if you're admitted, regardless of financial need. So this is something that you only utilize as, I said, your dream school. You're going to show up regardless of that price tag. This is typically a November 1st deadline, but it can be slightly different depending on the school. And again, you would only apply to one school early decision, but it is not required, and that's because it is a binding application. If you are in need of financial aid in order to make that college transition, this is probably not the best option for you. Early action is a non-binding opportunity for you to apply to the school early, really show your interest, and also get a decision back quickly. So it's similar to early decision, but it's slightly different in that it's not binding. So you can apply to more than one school early action. You'll find out sooner if you are admitted, so it gives you a little more time to compare financial aid packages and things of that nature. Again, it is typically a November 1st deadline, so somewhere within that time frame. Rolling admission means that the school will take applications up until that enrollment goal is met for that term. So you can wait until the last minute to apply, and it's a chance that you'll get in, but if it is full, you'll be pushed to the next term. So rolling admissions doesn't really have a deadline per se. And you can miss out on financial aid opportunities if you miss a priority deadline for financial aid, so you could still be admitted but miss other deadlines if you wait till the last minute. Regular admission, again, is non-binding. It is widely available at a lot of colleges and universities. It is the majority of the applications that we receive through our office, and it typically has a deadline for January, February. You will receive a admissions decision typically by April for regular decision. It could be sooner depending on if you get it in sooner or not. But you do need to check individual schools for these deadlines as well. So hopefully that explains that a little bit. Know that outside of application deadlines, there's separate scholarship deadlines as well, and separate financial aid deadlines. Here's a little bit about financial aid. I'm not going to go too in-depth into this. I will tell you that senior year, at the beginning of the year, we do a financial aid presentation where you will be able to get more kind of in-depth information about financial aid because it is a more complicated process. So these are just some bullet points that I wanted to share with you. The first is that students that are going to anticipate enrolling in college in fall of 2021 would need to submit the FAFSA application that opens up on October 1st of next year. So as when they're seniors in October, that's when you'll fill out that FAFSA for the following year. That application, whether you think you will be eligible for financial aid or not, it is helpful to still submit that because the individual schools will use that to determine additional aid they may be able to provide you outside of federal aid. So institutional aid is often determined through that FAFSA, and some also need-based aid can also be determined through that FAFSA from the institution. So it doesn't hurt to submit that application. It doesn't hurt you to do that regardless if you accept federal aid or not. For private schools, they use the CSS profile. This is a separate application you fill out for some private schools, and that's how they determine aid as well. And then there's separate scholarship applications for the different colleges, as well as private scholarships, local scholarships, and academic and alumni scholarships at your colleges and universities. There's lots of applications if you haven't figured that out yet. There's federal aid that can be used. So federal aid, so when you fill out that FAFSA, if you receive federal aid, you can use that at a 4-year, a 2-year, and even some career tech and certification programs too. So like CVCC programs, you can actually use financial aid to help pay for some of that as well. So different types of financial aid include scholarships and grants. That's your free money you don't have to give back. Loans are the money you do have to pay back, and then there's work-study programs, which basically provide funding for you to work on campus, and you get access to those jobs if you qualify for work-study first over other students. Completing the FAFSA, again, does not impact your enrollment in the institution or your scholarship eligibility, but it can open you up to additional scholarship and grants. And you don't have to accept aid that you are granted, right? So you have the option to accept or deny any aid that is granted to you. I'm not going to show that video for the essence of time, but there's also some additional resources in your packet, and then also just some things to think about. So there's online resources, there's in-person help, and then there's experience. So those are really the three ways that you can continue through this process. Know that myself, as well as other people in the guidance office, are here to help. I'm happy to meet individually if you decide that you need some more one-on-one. And just remember that this is really an individual process and pathway for each of you. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. This is really about what is best for you. And thanks for coming. So thanks for sitting through all of that. Here's my information if you need to get a hold of me, and I appreciate your time. So I'll be hanging out for a little bit if you have any questions.